So before we start this story, I would just like to say that this is inspired by my Discord server. I recently asked if they wanted to hear me read some scary stories out, just because I simply wanted to branch out my content a little bit. And for the most part anyway, you guys said that you wanted to see me read some scary stories, so here we are. This is just going to be a little test thing. I'm not really sure if this is something that's going to be consistent on the channel. I'm going to see how you guys react to it. If you guys like it, then I'll continue to do it, but it's all up to you guys, because like I said, you guys are going to be the ones to help me shape this channel. And yeah, without further ado, let's hop right in. So I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but when you're a 14-year-old kid and your parents find you responsible enough to stay home alone, it's a pretty good feeling. Well, at least it used to be. I find it hard to be alone after what happened to me that night. Anyway, my parents wanted to have a little getaway vacation to Hawaii, and they trusted me enough to stay home alone during the weekend. They said that I was allowed to have a friend over, but if I wanted to, I had to make sure that every single mess that I made was cleaned up before they arrived. I decided to not have a friend over just because it was the first time that I had the whole house to myself and I wanted to experience what it was like. So after a few hours of sitting on my ass all day, playing video games, watching TV, and eating junk food, I decided to go for a short bike ride around the nearby forest. I should probably mention that we don't have many neighbors, and the ones that we did have were about a 5-minute drive down the road. Anyway, I left the house, got my bike from the garage, and locked all the doors. Right when I was about to leave, I made a bone-chilling discovery. I saw footprints leading from the front yard to the window to my room. My brain thought of two things. One, I thought for some reason I went over there recently, and two, there was some creep watching me through my window. I wanted to investigate further, but I didn't want to scare myself on the first day being home alone. And I knew that if my parents found out about this, they would never let me stay home ever again. I got on my bike and started to head out for the forest. About 6 minutes of riding cleared my head a little bit. The birds were chirping, the leaves on trees moving as the wind passed through them. However, my relaxing ride through the forest was interrupted by something. A loud scream, accompanied by the sound of what I can only describe as bones crunching. I cannot believe what I was hearing. I was frozen. I had just heard the sounds of what I can only assume to be someone getting murdered. After a good 10 seconds of sitting there, I turned around and biked fast to my house as fast as possible and called the police when I arrived. They told me that since I lived pretty far out from any patrol point, that it would take around 15 to 20 minutes for a squad car to arrive. When I gave them my address and told them that I was not in any immediate danger, but whoever I heard was, and I told them to get here as fast as they possibly could. I hung up with the 911 operator, and a cop arrived at my front door about an hour and a half later and told me that they searched the whole park and found nothing. They said I probably heard a wild animal getting attacked by another, but we don't get bears or any predatory animals in the area. The officer apologized and said that they would keep a couple patrol cars out for the night just in case. I was at least grateful for that. It was about 6 p.m. at that point, so I decided to eat some leftover pizza for dinner and just continue to watch TV for a good 2 hours before heading to bed at around 8 p.m. I know it seems kind of early to go to bed at that time, but I just wanted to skip the night and start the next day. I was suddenly woken up at around 2 a.m. to the same loud scream that I heard the afternoon before. I immediately sat up, turned on my light, and saw that there was a tape recorder sitting outside my bedroom window. Someone was fucking with me big time, and I was not having it. I was just about to call the cops again when one of the officers that was patrolling the area knocked on my door and told me that they heard screams and wanted to investigate my house. They were actually suspicious of me right now. I showed them the recorder sitting outside my window and they took it in for evidence. I told them that someone was messing with me and that they left the house. They said that they would take the recorder to the station and continue to patrol the area. I went back to sleep around an hour after with no more issues for the night. I woke up at around 9 a.m. and noticed that none of the lights in the house would turn on. In fact, nothing in the house would work. TVs, lights, AC, etc. Then I remembered something. Those footsteps I saw the day before didn't only lead to my bedroom window, but they also led to the power box at the back of the house. I went back there and sure enough, the switch to the power was off. I pushed it back on and went back inside. I was wondering why this person would mess with me out of all people. Anyway, the day went on just like the one before did, including the bike ride. I came back to the house to see that the power was off again. I proceeded to call out saying that I had a gun and if they continued to fuck with me, I would shoot them. I was bluffing, of course. We don't own a gun, and even if we did, I would not have the balls to shoot someone. I just turned the power back on again, put my bike in the garage, and went inside. Come 7 p.m., I am watching a TV show in the living room when I hear a huge bang at my bedroom window. I pause my show, slowly walk to my room, and just when I'm about to turn the light on, I hear the power get cut. I used my phone's flashlight, aimed it at my bedroom window, and saw some mid-40-year-old man just sitting there, staring and smiling. He then took both of his hands and started to smack him up against the window as hard as he possibly could, constantly doing it, over and over again. I just stared at him as he was doing it. I was frozen in fear. And once he saw how scared I was, he started to laugh while doing it. This asshole was banging on my window while laughing at me. I told him that if he was not going to leave, I would call the cops again. He stopped pounding, he stopped laughing, and he was no longer smiling. He just had this dead look on his face that I can't really describe. He just stared at me, dead in the eye for a good 5 seconds with that dead look before he walked away. I still called the cops, of course. I'm not that stupid. I then heard my garage door open shortly after I hung up with the 911 operator. I looked out my living room window and saw the same guy was currently entering the garage. I was now able to get a better look at the guy, however. He looked about 5'9", 170 pounds with a really thin frame. This guy hasn't looked like he's eaten in months. I quickly ran to make sure the garage door was locked. Thankfully, it was. However, I heard him trying to turn the knob on the door, accompanied with him quietly laughing. I told him the cops were on the way, and I heard footsteps slowly leave the door. But I never heard him leave the garage. He was still just walking around in there. I heard the toolbox in there open, heard him chuckle, and heard him speed walk out of the garage. I then heard my bedroom window being banged on again, louder and more aggressive than the first time, this time accompanied with screams rather than laughter. When I walked into my room, I saw that he now had a hammer in his hands and was trying to break into the house. Thankfully, he seemed kind of on the weaker side of things, and it helped that the window was quite durable. At least that's what I was thinking until I saw the window crack. I sprinted out of the room, shut the door, got some chairs from the kitchen, and threw them in front of the door. I armed myself with the sharpest knife we had and sat in the living room in fear. I heard the glass start breaking more and more when I realized something. You know how I said earlier that I'm not that stupid? Yeah, I take it all back. I'm really fucking stupid. My door opens into the room, not the hallway. Meaning that it doesn't matter that I put chairs in front of the hallway, he would just be able to pull the door open normally. I heard the glass shatter. I heard him step into the house, into my room. His footsteps walking through the glass is all I heard in that dark, silent house. He opened the door, saw the chairs I put in front of the door, and laughed hysterically. He saw me and began to sprint at me at full speed, with hammer raised above his head like a fucking serial killer from a horror movie. I stabbed him in the stomach once he got close enough, and he let out the same scream that I heard in the forest the other day. I ran out of the house, ran down the road to see 2 sets of police sirens heading towards my house. One of those cops were the same cop that I talked to the other day. I told them that the guy was still in my house and that I had stabbed him. They drove as fast as they could and told me to get into the car and stay put until they arrested this guy. So after a bit of shouting and commotion inside of the house, I heard the sound of a taser being fired off and 2 officers bringing the guy out in cuffs. The cops then told me that he had removed the knife from his stomach and was waving it around towards the officers. They also said that they found some syringes in his pockets. Great. A drugged up psychopath. That's exactly what I needed to deal with on my first time being home alone. I was never told what happened to him, but I would like to think that he is locked up for life. But something tells me that he will not be in prison long, seeing as he didn't harm me. I called my parents and told them everything, and they were on the first flight back home. My mom was worried sick when she got back and hardly stayed 2 feet away from me at all times. My dad changed all the locks, changed the passcodes to the garage, and bought a gun. Even when my parents left to go to the grocery store for an hour or so, I get paranoid. Let me just say, that was the first and last time I am ever staying home alone for a long period of time.